Matthew, welcome. You have been with us for quite a while in terms of encounter coach training and things. We've got just tremendous respect for who you are and what you bring. I would love to hear a little bit about how you've used encounter coach training and the influence you've had on people.
Great question. So, encounter coach training has completely changed the way I help people. I've always, been somebody who helped people in different arenas, coaching, as a leader at church, youth, and with adults. And encounter coaching has completely changed the way I do things. And so when it comes to dealing with people, I'm now able to get to the heart of their issues faster. I used to have people call me at 2 a.m. and we'd be on a call for 3 hours. And we get to the end and I'm like, I really hope that helps. And now I get on a call with somebody for 60 minutes and they say, I've tried counseling, I've been in therapy, I've met with my pastor, this has been more transformational in this 60 minutes than anything I've ever done.
That's amazing.
For me, it doesn't surprise me anymore because the method, it makes sense with how we're built as humans and the way that Jesus changes people. And so now I'm like, it feels so true to me to be able to interact with people in a way that honors who they are, also connects them with Jesus in the way they really need to, and helps them to get unstuck in ways where they're like, wait a second, I'm unstuck. And I don't think I'll ever go back to being stuck again the way that I was stuck. Like that's something I didn't even think was possible.
Yeah.
So that's been the effect I've been able to have.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know you work a lot with people, Christians who are in really difficult marriages, ready to give up. Without sharing any confidential details, would love to hear just a brief testimony of how you've helped people repair their marriages.
Yeah, using encounter coaching with marriage coaching is like the joy of my life. It almost turns it into what I call now performance coaching. Because a lot of people look at marriage coaching as I'm trying to do this to save something that's bad, but that's not enough, And so it's like performance coaching where we're looking at it and saying, what's the roof? What's the ceiling of where you guys could get to? And if you're able to open up your heart to be able to kind of attach your faith to God being able to do something crazy in your marriage, the tension and the problems, they actually are catalysts to take you to complete life transformation, where you get to a point, and this is one of the principles I love from Metaformation, is you get to the point where you say, I'm actually glad that my marriage broke down and almost ended.
Wow.
Because the way our relationship is now and the way I know Jesus, honestly, wouldn't have been possible without these circumstances. For somebody to get to a place where they're not like, man, finally we're past that.
Yeah.
And instead they say the story of how I got here is just as important as the place I got to. And the problem with the marriage is like the problems are so stacked that it feels like everything's bad. Right. They're almost like if I was to walk away from the marriage, it would solve all the problems. And I say, what if all the problems could be solved because of the tension, because of the problems? What if that's actually bringing out things in you that the Lord is saying, you can't take those things to where I'm calling you to. Yeah. This is actually a time to surrender instead of a time to run away, and to give people the tools to surrender and it not feel hard and heavy is crazy. It blows people's minds. They're like, you're telling me there's an easy way to forgive my husband. You're telling me there's an easy way to work through this with Jesus where he does all the heavy lifting. Yeah. And then they get to the end of it and they're like, this was insane. Like all of my friends need to do this. And so it's so cool.
Yeah. And I'm curious, how does Jesus show up in those types of situations?
Yeah. The biggest thing is when we come to our core desires, we take our core desires that we have for, let's say, approval or comfort or significance. We take those things and we put them on our spouse. And our spouse can't fulfill them. And that's actually the cause of our marriage pain. And so our core desires are placed in us by Jesus for him to fill them.
Yeah.
And so when I'll have a wife who says, I just feel like I'm nobody because when I'm with him. And I'll say, well, let's ask Jesus about that. And we'll sit there and we'll ask Jesus, why am I significant no matter what my husband thinks of me?
Yeah.
And she gets this sense of her value that is not attached to her husband's opinion. She's free. And when she's free, she no longer lives wondering, is today gonna be a good day or a bad day? Is the shoe gonna drop soon? And she's like, no, I'm significant no matter what because Jesus thinks I am.
Yeah.
And she actually shows up in her marriage in a different way.
Wow.
And her husband is actually called to more in a way that doesn't feel like pressure. It actually
Yeah.
feels like an invitation.
Mm.
And so to see Jesus come in and actually change who they rely on,
Yeah.
so that instead of in their marriage, they're coming to take something, they're coming to give something because they've gotten it directly from Jesus.
Oh, that's
It's
so
the
good.
craziest thing.
That's so good. Last question. So how has encounter coaching changed you in your relationship with Jesus?
Whew. Todd, I tell people, we say that Christianity is not a religion, it's a relationship.
Mm.
And I spent a decade and a half having a bunch of soliloquies, talking to God and not hearing anything back. And I wonder why I suck at relationships.
Mm.
I wonder why my marriage sucked. I wonder why I was struggling so much. And it's because I'm struggling in my relationship with God. I don't know how to connect with God. Of course, I don't know how to connect with my wife. And so this encounter coaching, it has helped me to take tragedies in my life and to be able to see the goodness of God, to be able to see from heaven's perspective how this is good. Not just on, when I get to heaven, but I can see it on this side of heaven where I can actually be a help to people going through the same thing. And then also, it's helped me to not put so much pressure on my wife to fulfill all my needs,
Yeah.
right? And when I took the pressure off of my wife to fill my needs and actually realized Jesus has always had what I needed, I just hoped when I got married, I wouldn't need him so much anymore because my wife was going to do it all for me.
Yeah, right.
And so getting Jesus to fill my heart's desires, it actually got me to a place where I took the pressure off my wife to fill all my desires, and she got healed and transformed because of that.
Oh, that's awesome.
She didn't go to therapy. She didn't go to counseling. She didn't get coached. I took the pressure off of her, and I showed up filled with Jesus in a way that actually wasn't something I was thinking about doing or tried to do. And I got to watch Jesus transform her life because he changed my life.
Wow.
It makes the whole Bible make sense when I actually have a relationship with Jesus and I let him regularly touch my heart and tell me who I am, so that I don't say, oh, well, he told me that last year, I don't need to ask him about it again. It's like, I want to talk to Jesus all the time.
Right.
And he wants to talk to me. And that truth changes everything.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it kind of reminds me, one of the reasons I love hanging out with you is you're always so full. And you have a lot to give. And I love you, man. Thanks for taking the time to just share your heart here. Thanks.
Absolutely. I love